Welcome to Trinity Church of Austin. I'm Sid Hall, Trinity's lead minister. Because of the coronavirus emergency, we are streaming our service over the internet rather than holding in-person worship. We are taking the pandemic seriously and following the guidelines of the CDC, the United Methodist Church, and the United Church of Christ. And we are closing our doors to gatherings for the foreseeable future. Phone numbers for texting prayer requests, a downloadable order of worship, email address for Pastoral Care, and instructions for supporting Trinity are in the description in the YouTube video. And you'll also see it from time to time on the screen. An early 6th century theologian described God as beguiled by beauty. The Creator was lured to create by a longing for beauty, and so set in motion a world of immense diversity and generativity. We were made for this divine generativity. And in this making, we are inherently worthy, not by doing, but simply by being. All things are beautiful, not by the standard of pretty as seen by our eyes, but by the essence of sacred worth that is sensed by the Spirit. Today we conclude our worship series entitled Beguiled by Beauty, where we have dwelled with the God of divine beauty, who is deeply in love with us and with the earth. Together we have practiced returning that divine passion as we fall more fully in love with creation and each other. The message today is entitled From Beauty to Compassion and Justice. At the end of our welcome time, we will light a candle to begin our worship and create sacred space together. We will do this every week during our entire worship. And if you have a candle at home and you'd like to light it with us, please feel free to do so. This week, you're also in for a special treat, as our staff and worship leaders are wearing these new t-shirts of Trinity that say Trinity on the front, Trinity Church of Austin, and on the back it says Keep Church Weird. And we are trying to do that together. Please know that whether we're meeting face to face or over live streaming, at Trinity you are welcome no matter who you are, who you love, what you believe or don't believe. Please know that you are welcome in this community. Welcome, friends.
Our series ends with a reaffirmation of our call to contemplative action in the world. The awareness of one another's beauty is the seedling for the birth of compassion and justice. A contemplative life can empty us and ready us to become instruments of the good. Let us affirm our plans to continue practicing a way of beauty that makes life rich, courageous, generous, and joyful as active agents of the divine beauty in the world.
For the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. God of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
Hey Trinity,
Hello, hello.
it's the Lot and Matt family, and we
Stop hitting me.
are in upstate New York.
Hello.
We're at a
Hello,
campground
guys.
near Syracuse, New
Hello.
York,
Daddy, can I tell something?
and we're having a good time out here with family.
And yeah, because
So we're going to show you a little bit
because-
about our campsite here with our RV, where we're all living.
I'll show
and,
you.
um,
We'll show you around.
Yeah, we'll show you around. So why don't you guys show them your game here first? We've got a game that has
Trinity.
Come
over here. All of the Trinity teachers. I know you never did this before. Please be quiet, Leaf.
Okay, Leaf, explain what we're seeing here.
Trinity Church of Austin. We are up here in what is this place?
Syracuse, New York.
Syracuse, New York. And I know you've never seen us before, and I know a couple of people died by the coronavirus, but we have a lot of spaces here. I'll just show you one.
Well, tell us the game that we have here. What happens with this game?
You Logan, would you like to do the honors? You have
Ooh,
to
look
put
at
up on everything, and if you don't get any points.
Ooh, we got it on the red one.
The red is the 3 points. The yellow is 2 points. The blue is 1 point.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's one of the games. That's one of the games we have, and then we also have something else special over here that the two boys want to show you. Come here, guys. Leaf, come over here. I'll show them that in just a minute. We have
black raspberries.
we have some black raspberries here. Look at these.
Look this.
Yum.
Right next to our site. We can pick them and put them in our.
Oh, show them the one behind our site.
We can pick them and put them in our ice cream or in our cereal in the morning.
Oh, we got some more. Follow
Follow where Dad's going.
And
All right, now over here we are picking some black raspberries, which we have right here next to our campsite. Let's get up close. Show me one with your. Can you point at one here? Point at some of these raspberries. Point at the good ones. Oh, there's the ones that are dark.
those ones are good too.
Yeah. So how do you put these in your cereal? Where else do you put these?
In my yogurt.
Cool.
I don't want it.
All right.
But you have to be careful for all the thorns.
Yeah, there's thorns. Okay. Thank you.
No.
All right. Action.
Come on, tell me.
Action.
Don't do it! Go away! Go away!
Okay. Tell me what you got, Leaf. What are you doing here?
You probably know Trinity people and I hope you know you ever played this game. And we're at Trinity Church of Austin. We're not there yet, but we're gonna live here. And
In an RV.
in our RV.
Now show us the game.
And presenting my game.
Okay, how does it work?
You just have to not touch the grass.
Ooh, that looks tough.
Yeah, it doesn't look tough.
Now what? Oh, I made it! Oh! We're doing our best with our little 100 square feet of ground here. This is the jump around. So it's a lot of fun. So we miss you all, and we're doing well
Can I
here.
show them my game?
We'll see you guys soon.
No!
Hi, I'm Tim Brace, Director of Music here at Trinity Church of Austin. For our meditation for this series, we are participating in Visio Divina, which is a form of divine seeing in which we invite God to speak to our hearts. In Visio Divina, we gaze at an image and are present to it without any particular goal other than allowing it to speak to us wordlessly with a divine voice. Allow your mind and heart to receive the beauty of the image and the music, the movement, the colors, the patterns of image and sound as an encounter with the divine. Or sit quietly and listen to the music, opening your heart to the sounds of the instruments, the movement of the harmonies, the patterns, and the richness of all of these together. Receive this music as an encounter with the divine, and let it share with you the beauty of creation.
Good morning. I'm Mark Moore. I'm the Associate Minister at Trinity. And this is the time that we hear your prayers. So please keep your prayer texts brief. And if we don't get to your prayer in the time allotted, feel free to type your prayer into the YouTube video chat box. We record all of the prayers and review them together as a staff. I invite you now into a time and an attitude of prayer. Are there prayers now that you would offer for our lives and our community? Please text your brief prayers to 512-766-3123. Prayers for the immigrant children to be released from the 3 detention centers by July 17th, and that ICE will reverse its stance and release their parents as well. Healing and joyful spirit, receive our prayers. Prayer for RAD's upcoming procedure. Healing and joyful spirit, receive our prayer. We pray for all who are suffering anxiety during this time of COVID and our isolation at home and our concerns and fears for engaging folks in the outside. Healing and joyful spirit, receive our prayers. A prayer for George and Wanda Holcomb. George is in hospice care at this time. Healing and joyful spirit, receive our prayer. From Joanne, a prayer for her sister Kathy, who is undergoing diagnosis and treatment of a potentially serious condition. Healing and joyful spirit, receive our prayers. Prayers for healing and comfort for Leah and the Stabenhagen-Ashbury family. Healing and joyful spirit, receive our prayers. Prayers for Anita Privet as she is hospitalized. Healing and joyful spirit, receive our prayer. For Doug Upchurch, who continues to struggle with his fight with cancer. Healing and joyful spirit, receive our prayers. Prayers for Cindy. Healing and joyful spirit, receive our prayer. Prayers for the recent graduates this year as they negotiate their futures. Joyful and healing spirit, receive our prayers. For Sandy Zellers-Tolson, whose surgery has been delayed. Healing and joyful spirit, receive our prayer. And from Daniel, finally able to get my bodily injury settlement, please let it go well for me. Healing and joyful spirit, receive our prayers. Let us hold these prayers and those we cradle in the silence of our hearts in a moment of silence. Please hear this prayer. Divine Beauty, Holy One. Please be in the spirit of prayer. Divine Beauty, Holy One, praise us, pause us for this moment. Bear us up in this time. Hold us in your arms forever. We offer our lives in service to your creation. We dedicate ourselves to increasing beauty in this world. We commit to compassion and action. In your many names we pray. Amen.
For this series, we are singing the Lynn Unger song, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, for our song of reflection. Lyrics are from the Sufi mystic poet Rumi. We are delighted to have this video put together for us by our own Mark Boyden, and also the creative talents of Dave Robinson and Carol Lewis in providing for us a body prayer set to this music. Lake German has joined them in presenting the body prayer, and our choir gathered virtually to provide the song for you to sing along. Lauren has provided piano accompaniment. Please stand in body and or spirit and sing with us.
Hi, my name is Karen Hampton. I've been a member of Trinity for about 20 years. One thing that has always drawn me to Trinity is the sense of safety that I have felt, both emotionally and physically. During the time of this pandemic, I appreciate even more that we are having our services virtually, which I view as a true act of love, protection, and inclusiveness for all who wish to participate in our services. And now, some words on beauty by Marcia McPhee. We often hear today's reading from Isaiah around the time of Christmas as we celebrate the birth of the one called the Prince of Peace. The people to whom Isaiah writes are oppressed and exiled by their captors. They have known much suffering. When Isaiah writes, "How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of the one who brings good news," not the feet specifically that are beautiful. It is the whole message of release from suffering that creates a beautiful peace. It is akin to saying, "You are a sight for sore eyes." The image of a messenger that brings good news is a welcome sight and cause for joy. To be part of the restoration of love and peace and hope is our call to unveil more beauty in the world.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Moore, and today I'm bringing you a reading from Isaiah 52, verses 7 through 10. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of one who brings good news, who announces peace and brings news of happy things, and proclaims deliverance, saying to Zion, "Your God reigns." Listen, those who keep watch raise a cry. Together they shout for joy, for they see with their own eyes God's restoration of Zion. Break out together in song, O ruins of Jerusalem, for God comforts the people and redeems Jerusalem. God bears a holy arm in the sight of all the nations. All the ends of the earth will behold the liberation of our God.
For the last 6 Sundays, we've been exploring what it means to see ourselves and creation as beguiled by beauty. And specifically, this Sunday, we're going to talk about from beauty to compassion and justice. Now, we've talked some about, throughout this time, the connection between beauty and justice. But today I want to explore that a little closer and make the direct parallel that I think is important. It's interesting how we have a tendency to, in our culture, in our world, to see the beauty around us, to see the beauty even in other people, and often miss that in ourselves. There's a wonderful poem that comes out of both paganism and Native American spirituality that goes something like this: beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty above me, beauty below me, beauty around me, and beauty within me. And it seems to me that we're pretty good about all those beauties except the one that comes from within. Now, there's some good reason for that. I think that most of us remember and carry shame pretty effectively. And depending on our background, depending on our family of origin, that can be pretty severe. And if it wasn't bad enough, then we get a lot of that just from being a part of religious organizations and the church specifically. But it's interesting that that is so much a part of our culture. And one of the things that I like about creation spirituality is that it sets out from the beginning to interrupt that by talking about human beings as original blessings. It begins with the Genesis story, of course, where at the end of the lines in the poem, as the days go through of creation, God says it is good. And then finally, when the human beings are created, it changes. It expands. It expands in a way that encompasses all. And God says, it is very good. And yet, even with that as a part of our theology in the Bible, there are many forces at work that indicate something otherwise, that want to say, no, we don't begin with very goodness. We begin with shame, with guilt. I think about that word good, and I think it can be a little misleading. It doesn't mean good as in good or bad. It means more like it's a good thing. This is a great thing. This is something that we need to behold as beautiful. And so this idea that creation is God's, and that everything in creation is a part of God, and therefore is infused with God's blessing, is the starting point of the whole Bible. But along comes Augustine in the 4th century, the church, and Augustine has got other ideas and believes that taking not the story of Genesis 1, but the story of Genesis 2, and interpreting that as we begin with the fall, with shame. And Augustine coined the words original sin, which was never around before. And this was so troubling, especially to the Celts and the Christians in the British Isles, that a Welsh monk by the name of Pelagius made a trip all the way to Rome to confront Augustine about this, saying, how can we inherit the sin of our ancestors? That belongs to them. We create our own sin, therefore we're responsible for ourselves. And yes, none of us are perfect, but we begin as blessings, not as sinners. Well, what we know is that there was sort of a shootout at the OK Rome Corral, and Pelagius lost. And the theology of Augustine became the dominant theology in the West, although, as many of you know, there were creation mystics that were there from the beginning and that often had to be underground in their viewpoints, who continued to advocate for the idea of what Matthew Fox calls original blessing. But the fact of the matter is that this theology permeated the very institutions of the church. And so it's inescapable for most of us in growing up in religious organizations, in church, to think that we can free ourselves from this without some effort, because we are taught it unconsciously from a very early age. And when you compile that with the shame of our own childhood, in whatever way that played out, whether it was in school or home or the playground, we're starting sort of way back from where we need to start. And so one of the things that we need to understand is that when we're talking about being beguiled by beauty, we need to make sure that we include ourselves in that picture. I spent some time in psychotherapy in my late 20s and early 30s, and right around that same time in the early 90s, Saturday Night Live came up with the character of Stuart Smalley, and you might remember his character who had a tagline, and that tagline was, "I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me." And we laughed at that, and we thought it was hilarious, and it was hilarious. And yet, it was kind of at the core of that I'm okay, you're okay theology that emerged in the 70s and 80s that said, unless we get to a place of seeing ourselves as okay, we're going to bleed all over the people we love and bleed all over the world. And so our first task is to get to the place where we can say, I'm good enough and I'm smart enough and that people like me. If we can get to that, then we've got something going. And you know, theologically, all it means is reaching back down into that deep well of the Genesis 1 story, where God says, you beguile me, you and all of creation is very good. And so I think about Jesus and his ministry and how he addressed this directly, although it may be a little bit hard to see sometimes. We think of Jesus as encountering people that were struggling in multiple ways. They're talked about in the culture as sinners, prostitutes, women, the poor, how the sick. How in the world would that constitute being a sinner? Well, it came from this view that said that sin is not just us making bad choices. It can also come from our ancestors, something that they did that gets passed down to us. When the people of that day saw someone who had leprosy, or saw someone who could not walk, or saw someone who was blind, they didn't just say, oh, what an unfortunate thing that person's going through. They believed that that had to do with sin, and that sin, whether it was their own or their ancestors, was something very real in them. And so when the people who were in that state came to Jesus and asked for healing, whether they knew it or not, they were not just asking to be able to see if they were blind. They were not just asking to be able to walk if they couldn't walk, or to be freed from leprosy if they had leprosy. They were asking for healing from being sinners in the world. And Jesus had the ability, I believe, to see into that and to interrupt that system of oppression that said you are inadequate, and maybe not even because of your own fault, but you are inadequate. And folks, I know we wouldn't think that way about many diseases today, but if you listen to the rhetoric that was around during the AIDS epidemic, if you listen to how some people talk about the poor in our society, or people who experience homelessness, some of those same views are there. They deserve it. It's not just that they're poor, it's that somehow they have created that themselves, or their family has created that themselves, and therefore they're not deserving of our compassion. They've already gotten too much of that. You know what I'm talking about? Have you heard that? And so Jesus was able to look at them and see them as creations of God, as beautiful creatures in the pantheon of love, and say to them, in their deepest places of pain, their deepest places of not being touched, you beguile me. I remember years ago, a member of Trinity wanted to take something of what she was learning about creation spirituality and translate it into her life. She cut hair for a living, and she decided that one day a week she was going to go down to what in those days was called Arch, and to where the homeless population struggled and lived and came for assistance. And she observed for several days and noticed that they smelled, they were not being touched, even though there were compassionate people handing out food and providing clothing and sometimes places to stay. The one thing they were missing was touch, the healing power of touch. So she decided to set up a shop for haircutting one day a week there. And the first thing she did is wash their hair. And she said that, I can't tell you how many times as I began to massage their hair and their head, that tears rolled down their face because they hadn't been touched in so long. So it wasn't just about cutting their hair and giving them the sense of dignity, but it was also the healing power of touch. When Jesus reached in to those people's lives, he didn't see original sinners. He saw original blessings. And I believe that was the true healing power of what he was able to offer. The scripture we heard today says these wonderful words. Isaiah the prophet says, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of the one who brings good news. And as Marcia McPhee pointed out, this is not about feet specifically, but it's about how the whole message of liberation from suffering creates a beautiful person. How all those things that bind us up and define us, either culturally or from our families or from the church, need to be broken open, and what's inside is the blessing of God. So why is this important for justice? You know, I believe that until we can see ourselves as blessing, it's really hard to see others in the same way. It's really hard to do the work of compassion and justice in our world until we can see blessing at every level, not only behind us and before us and above us and below us, but within us as well. And so that is the starting point for justice. I love what Joanna Macy, one of my favorite Buddhist writers, says. She's an activist, and she says that active hope is waking up to the beauty of life on whose behalf we can act. We belong to this world. She calls this activism the great turning, the turning of the wheel of justice. And we are part of that arc. But it requires us to wake up to the beauty of life. And not just within, but to others. And I think that, I see a lot of clergy, and I know people who want to help others, but are still captured in some ways with the shame of their own life. And while they set out to help, it's more of a fix-it type of thing. And we can't fix other people. We can't liberate other people. What we can do is address the structures of society, address the problems like the idea of original sin, for instance, and interrupt that so that people can be their own liberators, so that they can discover their own beauty. That's the goal. We're not there to make it happen for them. We're not there to fix them. What did Jesus say? He didn't say, after saying, what do you want me to do for you? He didn't say, well, I've fixed you, so go your way. He says, your faith has made you well. He knew that he was about removing the obstacles that were in front of them that prevented them from seeing themselves as blessing. And once those obstacles were removed, their faith could heal themselves. So as we look toward beauty in relationship to compassion and justice, I want to remind you, and I think this is particularly important in this time that we're in, this time of pandemic, this time of waking up to the kind of racial injustice that has been a part of our culture for hundreds of years, to waking up to how political systems are by their very nature very broken, and when we look to them to fix it, it's not going to happen. And so what is it that we can do? And that's the question that I hear a lot. What can we do? So Joanna Macy talks about three things. She talks about direct action, she talks about structural change, and she talks about a shift in consciousness. So I want to address those three things, because you may find yourself in one of those three areas as your primary energy. And what you need to hear right now is that living into each of those, leaning into those, is a part of that beguilement, is a part of a way to say, you are beautiful, you are enough, to those hurting, those broken, those left out, those who have been told by society and the church that you aren't enough. So she talks about direct action as getting out there on the streets and saying what she calls a holy no to the destructive and unjust practices that are going on. And we see a lot of that right now. We see people taking on that battle cry in powerful ways, and it's heartening to see. Of course, I worry about people's health. I don't want them to get the coronavirus. I'm happy to see them out there doing what they need to do and putting bodies in the way of oppression and saying no more. But maybe it's my age, I don't know. Maybe it's my parenting instinct inside, but I want them to be healthy as well. I want them to stay safe. But I'm proud of them for doing that. That is a powerful way. And you know, when I admit to my own tendencies as a pastor, as someone who's tried to take on the prophetic mantle, that direct action has been my primary way to step out, to carry the sign, to block the entrance, to lay down on the street, to say no more, and to do it loudly and visibly. But Joanna Macy says, lest we think that's the only way to be part of the great turning, we've missed it. Another way is structural change. And this is where we actively work to build new societal forms, new economies, new ways of being together and organizing, new theologies that begins with things like blessing instead of original sin. This is the realm of what Buckminster Fuller called to change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And so it's not about holding the sign, it's about being part of the structure and working for change. And this takes a lot of patience and time. And those people who dedicate their whole lives to that structural change, I have such great admiration for, because they often get in the middle of things and they find out that to move even a smidgen, they have to shoot for the moon. And then when they can't get to the moon, they get criticized by even the people that are supporting them for compromising. And so it's a very, very hard job to bring about structural change, and it moves very slowly. But once it moves and once it begins to break open, real change can occur. So it's a very powerful way. The third thing that Joanna Macy talks about is a shift in consciousness. This is where we do the work of inner spiritual and psychological transformation. It's why your personal psychotherapy matters for how you play out justice. It is why the way you do contemplative prayer, the way you meditate, has a direct relationship with the direction of the world. That transformation Campbell called the inward journey. And I think we intentionally try and develop beyond our own eyes of what we and vision of what we see, beyond our own ego, beyond our own world, and open up to a wider sphere that includes not just people who are different from us, but includes the whole cosmos, includes the all of humanity, and so it asks us to think differently, to feel differently, to become part of a different story than the scripted one that we have incorporated, that is no longer working, that draw deeply from the spiritual traditions, that can say, this Genesis story of original blessing belongs to me. This Jesus story of seeing sinners as blessings belongs to me, and I'm going to bring that consciousness to bear in my actions, in my words, in my daily life. That requires a whole way of thinking. So there's a direct relationship, you see, between beauty, how we see ourselves and how we see the world, and justice. When people don't believe that they are blessed, and we see them as blessings, we interrupt the systems of oppression. And when we take direct action through structural change, through protest and demonstration, that names that and names it loudly, we interrupt that oppression. When we move inwardly and believe in our hearts that all are blessing, even though it may not feel like we're doing anything directly, we are. It matters. There is a connection between blessing and beauty, how we see ourselves and how we see each other, and justice. And it has to start there. So I hope that during this series you have felt and experienced God's beguilement of you as beautiful, because you are. No matter what images or tapes or memories well up that say otherwise. And God is counting on you to be that voice, to make sure others know that too. And not just the human ones, but all sentient beings and the earth itself. All are crying out for some good word that says, you are enough. You beguile me. Amen.
Our song of response this week is Hymn of Promise, words and music by Natalie Smith, an American organist and composer who lived in Dallas until she passed away in 1992. While in Dallas, she directed the children's choirs at Highland Park United Methodist Church and continued her studies at Southern Methodist University. She published over 180 songs for choirs. This piece was written in 1985 and was dedicated to her husband, Methodist minister Dr. Ron Sleeth, who had been diagnosed with cancer. Hymn of Promise has become a favorite with Methodist and United Church of Christ communities. The Trinity Celebration Choir has sung several of her songs for our congregation, including Were You There on That Christmas Night and Laudamus Te. Please rise in body and or spirit and let us sing together.
In the brook there is a flower, in the seeded apple tree, in cocoons a hidden promise, butterflies will soon be free. In the cold and snow of winter, there's a spring that waits to be unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see. There's a song in every silence, seeking word and melody. There's a dawn in every darkness, bringing hope to you and me. From the past will come the future, what it holds a mystery, unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see. In our end is our beginning, in our time infinity, in our doubt there is believing, in our life eternity, in our death a resurrection, at the last a victory, unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see.
Hi Trinity, I'm Christine.
I'm Wyatt.
I've been a member of Trinity for over 20 years. I made my church home at Trinity because Trinity is weird. And by weird, I mean creative, innovative, challenging, and surprising. Trinity is experimental and it takes risks. That weirdness has kept me coming back for literally decades. One of the most wonderfully weird parts of Trinity is our children's ministry. What does that say, Wyatt?
All kids welcome.
Hold that up. Not all organizations make inclusivity their top priority, which means they won't always accommodate kids with developmental differences. At Trinity, when kids who need extra attention join our congregation, we hire extra children's ministry staff to make sure they have the support that they need to participate in our programs. What does that say, Wyatt? What does it say?
Kids are a part of worship.
Yes. Trinity welcomes children and families in whatever state they're in, on good days and bad days. At Trinity, I can feel safe because nobody is going to glare at me because my kid is noisy or rambunctious. I know church is a place where everyone believes that each person is a blessing. When we're able to gather in person, we show that belief with our children's circles, where the children often lead us in prayer. Kids also have the opportunity to close our worship by singing and playing instruments. What does that say, Wyatt?
Kids serve communion.
Yeah, will you hold that? At Trinity, we live out the belief that every person is an expression of God. That means that everyone, including kids, can participate in serving communion. Having kids offer other kids and adults the cup of blessing is one of the ways we welcome people of every age, gender identity, race, class, and sexual orientation. Now, as you know, Trinity has lost a lot of its rental income this summer because of the pandemic. We're making up some of this loss with a special Keep Church Weird fundraising campaign. Now, Trinity has 2 different gifts for donors this July. The first is a pride-striped rainbow Trinity t-shirt with the slogan, Keep Church Weird, on the back. Can you show the back of your shirt, Wyatt? Turn around. There you go. Beautiful. Back. The second is a lapel pin with the Trinity logo in a rainbow stole and the words, Trinity Church of Austin 2020 supporter. And Wyatt right now has it on his hat. Right in front there. Beautiful. You gonna put that on? Perfect. So to receive a pin, we're asking donors to contribute $15 or more, or for a t-shirt, $35 or more. But if you'd like to give and you don't want a t-shirt or a pin, you can still donate. Your contribution will help support free scholarship t-shirts and pins for Trinity friends who can't afford to donate right now. To sign up for t-shirts and pins, just go to bit.ly/keepchurchweirdfundraiser. That link is on your screen and in the video description below. You can donate online by credit card or by mail with a check. And if you can't afford to donate, you can still request a scholarship t-shirt or pin at the same link. What does that say, Wyatt?
Keep church weird.
Yes, hold that. Thank you all for helping Trinity to keep church weird. Bye, Trinity, we miss you.
Now is the time that we bring forth our offerings. In our worship space at Trinity, we always had 2 opportunities for our offering. A wooden bowl for the support of the programs and ministries of Trinity. And Trinity remains committed to the health and well-being of the whole community. It's hard not to feel, well, more than disappointed at the recent upturn in COVID infection in the broader community. We remain committed to following the advice and guidance of health professionals and scientists, even as we yearn to embrace this beloved community, and to act in typical Trinity fashion to support those in need, those who are oppressed, and those who are made invisible. Your support of Trinity remains critical for us to meet the commitment we made to put the well-being of this community and this broader community first in our hearts and in our actions. And that means to continue worshiping online for a while longer, and to continue paying the dedicated folks who work with our children and our hourly staff, and to make our facilities available to Hope Food Pantry and the Homeless Task Force. We also have a woven basket each week for a special offering. This week, it is for the Keep Church Weird fundraiser that you just heard Christine and Wyatt talk about. For years, we have had a summer spectacular fundraiser, and this year, it's just a little bit weird. There are several methods now which you can use to give to Trinity. You can visit our website, www.trinitychurchofaustin.org, and then click the support tab and scroll down that page to see the options there. You can download the Give Plus mobile app from either iTunes or Google Play. And you can also text your offering to 512-967-0292 and add the keyword Keep It Weird to support the Keep It Weird fundraiser. And if you want to give to both the general fund and the special offering, send 2 texts, one with the Keep It Weird keyword and one without. Please send your most generous offerings to Trinity today.
Trinity, it's Gus here, your pastoral intern. Got a few announcements before we close out the service today. As usual, for Pastoral Care, you can reach out to either Sid's cell phone, which is down in the description, or you can reach out to the email address pastoralcare@trinitychurchofaustin.org. We also have our continuing Keep Church Weird fundraiser. We have these t-shirts and pins, and you can donate to receive, or you can give a Rainbow Trinity t-shirt or pin. If you can't afford to donate, just request a scholarship shirt or pin. It's not required. You're not required to donate to get a t-shirt. The link for this donation is down in the description of the video as well. Let's see, Wednesday night class with Sid is still going on. It's a really fascinating conversation about about cosmology and the origins of life, and how that can kind of reach into a new mythology in the future. It's titled The Resurgence of Cosmic Storytellers. It's led by Sid, and it uses videos by cosmologist Brian Schwim. And that's Wednesdays from 8 to 9 p.m. And send an email to office@trinitychurchofaustin.org if you want to get the link to the Google Hangout. Let's see, and then the final one I have is the adult groups are still meeting. Sunday mornings we still have the Happy Heretics, the Lydia group, and the Social Justice class, those three. And Trinity Parents Care of the Soul is actually going on hiatus. There's a big load on families, and it's just been kind of attendance issues and all sorts of things. So we're going to put that on hold, and if you'd like to get in a conversation about that, bringing it back or anything like that, please reach out, or any of the other classes, please reach out to office@trinitychurchofaustin.org. Again, for links to the active classes we have, or more information about the COTS group. That's all I have. I'll pass it off to Sid for the benediction.
And now may the peace of God go with us. May the power of God sustain us. And may the love of God keep us together forever. And hey, Trinity, let's keep church weird. Amen.